Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Every Movie Has a Lesson. My name is Don Shanahan, and I review movies on the side as an educator where I look at movies with life lessons in mind, because to me, every movie can teach a lesson. This week's movie classroom review is on Get On Up. Well, folks, it doesn't take long, but the godfather of soul, he's got so many nicknames. Mr. Dynamite, the hardest working man in show business. The minister of the new super heavy. James Brown gets the film treatment with the help director, Tate Taylor, at the helm. And it's a good little flick. It's definitely kind of it's easily categorized as a biography flick. And with biographical films, you kind of have the usual cliches where you see good guy does well, maybe you see little town, big star kind of thing, the whole American dream aspect that comes with performing artists and things like that. I think most biographical movies have an awful lot of cliches that kind of come inherent with the idea of doing a person's life. You can't fit things into 2-hour movies. You have to do a lot of flashbacks. Two things going for this movie that make it above the rest in terms of biographical films is, one, I like a good biographical film that casts an unknown lead, and Chadwick Boseman, who is only in his fourth feature film, who was played Jackie Robinson last year in 42, plays James Brown, and because he's not all that recognizable, he just absolutely just fades into this part and does a fantastic job physically and emotionally, and even from a speech standpoint, making you really believe you're watching James Brown, or at least a really very good interpretation of James Brown. He's a good actor as it is. Anyone who saw 42 last summer knows that. It's a fantastic performance from him that really does lead the way. That's one thing that this movie has going for it that other movies don't. No offense to Ray and Walk the Line and Ali and all these movies like that, but when you bring a big star in, they're almost too recognizable, and you have to kind of get past the fact you're watching them first before you realize you're watching James Brown or whatever the subject person is. So for this movie, it's I think that's one big plus that really sells the story. The other thing is, every biographical film you run into has to kind of cover and deal with it's hard to, like I said, it's hard to stuff a whole life story into just 2 hours, but you're going to get every flashback stereotype cliche, filmmaker's trick in the book. You're going to get just a lot of just repetitious kind of thing. Like when we've seen one biography movie, we've seen them all. What Tate Taylor and his writers do here is kind of timestamp and frame the chapter of his life and the flashbacks we see with different nicknames that kind of go with the song and the chapter of what James Brown's doing, and it's really a kind of a good, smooth way to kind of keep this pace moving. It's a long movie at 138 minutes, and it's challenging for how much it tries to cover, but it moves really well, and there's definitely some flashbacks that get revisited. Not just once, sometimes when we do flashbacks, it's just a single episode. Some of these we go back to and see started at one point and see finished later when it serves the plot and where things are going. Really, really smart writing and filmmaking here from Tate Taylor. Like I said, he did The Help a year ago. You have nice performances on an ensemble with Viola Davis and Octavia Spencer, Jill Scott. You have a newcomer, Nelson Ellis, playing longtime partner Bobby Bird, who's probably the chief supporting character part here. This is a solid film. What really puts this movie over the top is the fantastic musical performances and musical pieces to it. I think we've seen a lot of biographical films that take the good things and the memorable things that our person is known for and do too much behind the scenes and not enough put that person on stage or see what made them great. This movie shows what made James Brown an icon and what made him great. It's a fantastic biographical film. In my opinion, it's one of the best in recent memory. I give it a 4 out of 5. Let's get to the lessons. Okie doke. Lesson number 1 is, and lesson number 1 and lesson number 2 go together, so let me kind of tell you that now. Lesson number 1 is the business, and I'm going to put that in quotes here, the business part of show business. I think most of these movies that deal with popular recording artists or singers or even actors in some of those films like that, we see the behind-the-scenes story. We see the parts that that either the true story, so to speak, behind a legend or the true story behind a person's success. This movie does have that kind of cliche background. I will say every story is unique, where that's the part that kind of breaks the cliche, but we definitely see what James Brown had to do to kind of hold the success he has through the years of changes and eras of which he covered. The man touched so many genres of music, and we see just kind of either his success or his hubris to kind of keep his brand going, and the enormity of his presence is easily seen. Like any good biographical film, you get that kind of behind-the-scenes piece, and that makes up Lesson 1. Let's go to Lesson 2. Lesson 2 is kind of the yin to the yang here, and that is the show part of show business. And James Brown wasn't called the hardest working man in show business for nothing. He really, just the influence and the icon that he is, we see so much now, so much even then. And the movie, like I said, with its really well done performances, I think a piece of this credit goes to producer Mick Jagger, who is a big James Brown supporter and fan, and made sure that the man's music spoke as much as his mission and the kind of the flaws and the character parts of his life. But we definitely get to see, this is the easy one of all the lessons. And the movie puts this on display extremely well, where we see the show part of show business and what it takes to kind of have what he calls the groove and all the different things that made him truly special. Last one, Lesson 3 coming up. Alright. Lesson 3, let me kind of get my bearings right here. Lesson number 3 is kind of more the character one, because once again, we know the star, sometimes we know the business. So let me talk about this here. The character flaw of a man, terrible handwriting today, stay with me, of a man who says he needs no one. I think we all know this type of person, the lone wolf, the I can do it better myself person, the not so much the introvert, because obviously James Brown's a very extroverted guy, but I think we all know those people who, whether it's a tough lifestyle or not a lot of support in their life, they seem to be the person that just kind of does things alone. And I think the people who do things alone find themselves sometimes at a loss of being alone, or there's even that moment where I think we've seen this before in other movies, the moment where the person who always says he needs no one, oh, I got you messed up the end here, let me say no one. The idea is you got a guy who's a loner who realizes that it's the people around him that made him the success he is, the people around him that are very much equally dependent on his talent and support, but also the ones that wouldn't keep him up to give him that ability to give them talent and support. So James Brown is probably the chiefest of his character flaws that's shown in the movie. The man has quite a peppered history of abuse, whether it's drug abuse, violence. He had a pretty tough upbringing. We see a lot of suggestions of those parts of his character, but like any good biography movie, enough is sugar-coated to kind of make it seem acceptable that the man isn't quite a monster. He is still kind of the godfather of soul and the person we would like to be, support and be a fan of. So the dark chapters of his life are definitely kind of smoothed over, but this lesson, the idea of a man who needs no one, and how that is a flaw because he really actually does need people around him, kind of finishes the movie. Get On Up is a fantastic film. Definitely a good biographical film, a good finish to the summer. Definitely counter-programming compared to the blockbusters that are out there, so please give it a chance. I definitely give it a high recommendation. As always, you can find all of my reviews, especially my full review of Get On Up, on my website of Every Movie Has a Lesson. Is it gonna fit? Haha! EveryMovieHasALesson.com. Stay tuned there as we get through the month of August, and hopefully we find a few more diamonds in the rough. But August is kind of the end of summer, where it's the dumping grounds, where not a lot of things are worth your time. I'm definitely not seeing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so you're going to have to go someplace else for that review. Until next time, folks.